Okay, welcome to this Basham Buddhist tradition text of Dabari, his chapter, the the Bodhisattva. Uh, let's read it, and section 22. Joy in all things. Joy is one of the cardinal virtues of Buddhism, and the Bodhisattva, who is the example which all Mahayana Buddhists are expected to follow, as far as their powers allow. And so trained his mind in that even the most painful and unhappy situations, it is still full of calm inner joy. The following passage is from the Compendium of Doctrine. The first paragraph is the work of the author, Shantideva, while the second is quoted from a lost sutra, the meeting of the father and the son, the Pitra Putra Samagama. Okay, so this is Basham's language, he himself talking here. Let's think about what it's saying. What are the cardinal virtues mentioned here? Joy, in all things, joy is one of the cardinal virtues. Cardinal virtues. Well, here is Basham reflecting his knowledge of Roman Catholic theology. It was Thomas Aquinas who referred to Aristotle's four virtues of prudence, temperance, fortitude, and justice as the four main or first foundational virtues. And then in his system of virtue, he would build theological virtues on top of that: faith, hope, and love. So the cardinal virtues are absolutely a kind of religious idea that comes from, that is, well, is as a category, is a Catholic idea. But it refers to Aristotle and Aristotle's basic virtues. Now, in the way that he is using this, he is then asking, are there primary or what are the cardinal virtues of Buddhism? Now, we could ask the same of the school. What are the cardinal virtues of what we want to develop in students before others are developed? So, just what then are the cardinal virtues of Buddhism, the Buddhist paramitas? So, the Bodhisattva, let's highlight that. The Bodhisattva, oh gosh, that's over there, we'll go over there. Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva well, that's good. So Buddhist perfections, paramitas, there are 10 scattered across the Pali Canon, particularly in the Jataka tales. Each of the Jataka stories tells a story, and then which illustrates one of the virtues. Storytelling is a good way of getting across the virtues. And there are some virtues that Mahayana couldn't accept. Renunciation, nekiyama, I think it is, couldn't be accepted. Honesty couldn't be accepted as a virtue, as in terms of speech, right speech, truth telling. Ooh, that doesn't sound very much like upaya. And in any case, now in those Pali Canon virtues lists were developed, it seems, Basham would argue this, into six altered list, six virtues developed in Mahayana, in the Lotus Sutra, and then later in various third and fourth century Lotus texts, the Tathagata Garba and others developed a list of 10 further forward, 10 to make 10 nice, neat virtues. Joy is not listed in the 10 paramas of Theravada, but it is part of the 6 or 10 paramas. Pithy, joy is kind of listed as one of the four immeasurables or great abodes, Brahma Viharas, the sublime attitudes or abodes of Brahma, the divine abodes. These are Buddhist virtues, goals, aims that the practice of meditation seeks to cultivate. Four immeasurables, the four are loving kindness, benevolence, compassion, empathetic joy and equanimity. And now these are shared across Theravada and Mahayana. Now, are these, there are whole debates about what is virtue, what is a skill, what is something else. These are aims, purposes, goals, and to some extent they are virtues as well. So how does joy, how does it relate? What is joy? How does it relate to the Brahma Vihara idea of joy? What does it say in the text here? As far as their powers allow. So how do we develop it? Well, Theravada obviously are not very virtuous. They're not credible. You can't believe them. The Love Sutra, Sutra of the Pali Canon, talks about the cultivation of these paramas. So you would expect Theravada to be loving, but are they, is the question, because they don't help others. They're individualistic in their monkish pursuit of enlightenment, the Mahayana attitude. So in Mahayana, these have the power to cause the practitioner to be reborn in a heavenly realm, a Brahma realm, along with a meditative tradition associated with the Brahma Vihara, are found in pre-Buddhist and post-Buddhist Buddhist Vedic literature. So quite exactly what has been taken as literal and metaphorical here depends on Theravada and Mahayana. Pithy joy means kind of happiness, rapture, bliss, and it's especially emphasized in Mahayana. It's joy for others, sympathetic joy, and it becomes this idea of mudita, the vicarious joy, meaning joy, pleasure in others' success, their well-being. And the traditional paradigmatic example of this state of mind is the attitude of a parent, a father, observing a child's accomplishments and successes. Nice link with the previous passage, although this is Shantideva, or at least this is talking about Shantideva. Mudita or meditation is used to cultivate the appreciation of joy at the success and good fortune of others. So, what is the significance of the Bodhisattva here? He has so trained his mind. Basham here is pointing out how this extant text, this Pitra Putra, that is being quoted in Shantideva's Compendium of Doctrine, develops reflects the developments of the 3rd, 4th century, an evolution of ideas about how the mind is to be trained, why them, and what for, where joy is understood as for others, not just as a Theravada selfish form of joy. So, what powers are being talked about? As far as their powers allow, we have this phrase powers here. What powers are being referred to? Mahayana developed a much more permissive idea of combining spiritual and family life than the renunciation of Theravada, in part because of the challenge of transmission of new Oriental cultures. The world renouncing ascetic Indian practice of Buddhism would be rejected by uh, indigenous religious traditions in China, in particular, Confucianism and Taoism. Yeah, women had a good place, and in Tibetan land, even the Mahayana first attempt, because it was still quite influenced by the Theravada monkish approach, was rejected. You take a second attempt at transmission, not the 6th, to the 7th century, for it to be successful. So the Confucianism, Taoism religions didn't like the renunciation, male-orientated, macho religion, and so a different religion was needed, a more flexible approach to salvation of men and women in their ordinary everyday situation, indigenous peoples who couldn't practice the austerities of Theravada. So, what's the difference between the developing Mahayana practices, the trainings of the 3rd and 4th century, and Theravada? So, Mahayana practices, let's read the text here. Even in the most painful and unhappy situations, Mahayana practice aimed at becoming not arahats but at bodhisattvas, saints who've become enlightened but who are unselfishly delay nirvana to help others attain it, as well as the Buddha did. Enlightenment can be attained in a single lifetime, and this is to be accomplished even by the lay person. If you chop wood, then chop wood, one Zen master tells his student. The various subdivisions within Mahayana traditions, such as Zen, Nichiren, and Pure Land, promote different ways of attaining this goal, even in the most unhappy and painful everyday life situations. But all are agreed that it can be attained in a single lifetime by anyone in any kind of life who puts his mind or her mind, sometimes their body, to it. The Mahayana form of Buddhism tends to be more religious in nature than its Theravada counterpart, in the sense of ordinary everyday people can practice the religion. Often this included the veneration of celestial beings, bodhisattvas, Buddhist ceremonies, religious rituals, magical rites, the use of icons, images, and other sacred objects. Especially Shantideva, what we're talking about now is Tibetan Buddhism, the Tantra. The role of such animistic influences of the religion of Bon in Tibetan Tantric Buddhism is well understood. This didn't get really off the ground not until the 5th, 6th, especially 7th century, and Shantideva writing in the 8th century, who have been. Now, it's not all the same. Such tantric practices discouraged by Zen practitioners who've been known to burn statues of the Buddha. There's a book, if you see the Buddha on the road, kill him, to demonstrate their unimportance. It's not about the Buddha, it's about the religious experience during the moment of enlightenment. So what are these unhappy situations? Well, the unhappy situations are the realms of pain the Mahayana vow to return to so they can help others. What is the compendium of doctrine? Sounds a bit Doctor Strange. So, given its proper name, the Shakya Samayaka, I'll call it SS, is an anthology of quotations from the Mahayana Sutras with a commentary by Shantideva. The SS has passages of ethical and philosophical that are many of which are very beautiful and moving poems and scriptural materials drawn from more of hundreds of sutras, many of which don't exist today. So it includes instructions for how to behave while begging for food, while doing work assignments in the monastery. It's an important witness to the daily life of Indian monks developing particularly Tibetan monasticism in the 1st century CE. So, the first paragraph, the work of the author. What author? Who is Shantideva? Who is Shantideva? Shantideva. His life would likely have occurred in the late 7th to the mid 8th century. The two major works that are attributed to him are the SS, the Compendium of Doctrine, and to his philosophical poem called the Bodhi Caravatra. Okay, but more on really SS is what we're looking at. According to modern Mahayana Tibetan Buddhist Pema Chodron, Shantideva was not well liked in Nalanda. There was a university there. Apparently, he was one of those people who didn't show up for anything, never studied, never came to practice sessions. Shantideva was not well liked in Nalanda. Interesting. Apparently, he was one of those people who didn't show up for anything and didn't help. What, lastly, then, is this Lost Sutra? Let's give it yellow. While the second quoted the Lost Sutra, the meeting of the father and son, Pitra Putra Samagma. Well, an agma means there are just a collection of writing. There are agmas that include Theravada and Mahayana agmas, Chinese agmas, and we don't know very much about this particular Agma, probably 3rd or 4th century, quoted by Shantideva, retained in his thing. So this was section 22, an Agma, meaning a Sanskrit sacred text from the early Buddhist school, preserved in Chinese translations and in Shantideva's, bits of it in Shantideva's. This particular Agma, probably from the 3rd or 4th century, is an Agma style text, wanting to attain that status. Now, who wrote it? That's a really interesting question.